What is up, Freelarks back here, and I'm bringing you guys a weird video today. Now, I was looking on the R-Hockey subreddit on Reddit, and a user who I reached out to and contacted afterwards regarding this topic with the name of Chris CFTB97, happy cake day by the way, he made a post that I was really intrigued by. And I'll leave a link in the description, for sure, to this post so you guys can check it out, maybe comment on it a little bit more as well, because it's very interesting. What the league would look like if we were still in the original Six era. And I'm scrolling through it right here, you're looking at a little bit of footage of it, but to get the full effect, you can head over, click the link, look at the rosters that this guy made. And basically, what this guy did was he devised a kind of formula. And in each year of the draft, the first or the highest drafting original Six team gets the first overall pick, the second highest gets the second overall, and the third highest gets the third overall. That's how it works. That's how he details it in his post as well. So that's what I did. I went ahead and I updated all of these rosters because the top comment on this post says, oh, somebody should make this on NHL 17 and run this league simulation. So that's what I did. I reached out to the user, Chris, who made the post. I asked him, hey, would it be alright if I feature this in a video? I'll give you full credit and everything. He said, yeah, sure, go for it. So this is what I'm doing right here. So what we have right here is a season mode. And I have it set in the, I believe this is the, I believe it's either the Swiss or the Czech Republic. No, it's the Swiss League. And the reason I have it set in the Swiss League is because you can't make a season mode with a selected number of teams. You can't choose the amount of teams you have for a season mode. So in order to do that, for this season mode with original Six teams, I had to choose the league that had the lowest amount of teams. And the Swiss League had 12 teams. So what I did was I went ahead and I switched out some of the teams in the 12 Swiss team lineup into these original Six teams. So what we have here is 6 Swiss teams and 6 original Six teams, and the original Six teams all have the rosters that Chris proposed on Reddit. So, just to quickly go over what we have right here, I updated everything so that it's up to date with the post. I set all the captains to the same way. I made all the lines the same way as well, even though the game does have some players that do rank higher than others that are scratched or on lower lines. This is the setup that Chris had in his post, and this is how we're going to be rolling throughout the season. So this is what Toronto looks like over here. Power play and penalty kill, I left that on default. I made some changes to make, some right-handed guys on the left side and all that. But this is what Toronto looks like. This is what New York looks like. These are all set with draft picks, and it's all set up in a way that the original Six lineup, and if the original Six were to still be here, this is what the teams would look like. And, of course, it's weird seeing all of these NHL teams. What if we only had 6 NHL teams? Look at how good these teams are, and I think it really is a proclamation to just how stacked the league was when Gretzky was around. I know that sounds irrelevant, but I might explain that a little bit later, but this is what all the teams look like right here. If you were to ask me, I'd say that the team with the best chance of winning, it's either Chicago or Toronto. Boston is a close third, in my opinion, but some of these teams, like, Montreal, I don't think Montreal has what it takes to win, because the way this season is going to play out, we're going to have 50 games played, and each of these teams, they'll play against each other, they'll play against other weaker Swiss teams, so I'm expecting a lot of points out of these teams at the end of the season. What I'm expecting is high-scoring point totals, and in terms of team success, how embarrassing would it be if one of the Swiss teams were to finish ahead of one of the NHL teams? So, let's just start up this season right here, and we'll scroll right through it up until the playoffs, and then we'll see just how stacked and how interesting this is going to be. So, I wanted to compare this to the NHL back when the original Six was a thing. Oh boy, okay, You know what? I totally forgot about this. Totally forgot about this. We should turn injuries off, shouldn't we? Okay, I'm gonna restart this because we should have injuries off for sure. Alright, we're back over here. I'm just gonna go over the settings real quick, go over the rules, and, where's injuries? Yeah, we'll turn these off right here. So, what I wanted to relate this to, and I think a lot of people are going to be looking at this and say, oh, wow, the teams are really stacked. This is what it would be like if we only had 6 NHL teams and this plethora of good players. All these teams that we had in the NHL, they'd be stacked, right? Well, yeah, that's pretty true. And I think it kind of pays a bit of a testament to just what the league was like back in the original 6 era. So, back in the original 6 era, we had 6 teams. And it was back then that the teams that we had, they were pretty standard teams. They had their fourth line grinders and everything, but they had their stars as well. And the league was at a place where the amount of players on each team and the amount of players that were good enough to be on an NHL team, they definitely weren't unbalanced. You didn't have a plethora of guys playing outside the NHL that should have been playing in the NHL, and you didn't have it the other way around either. You didn't have too many NHL-ready guys. So, think about it. 1966, we have 6 teams in the league. 1967, that total doubles to 12 teams. And by the time 1979 rolls around, well, we have 22 teams. So, within the span of 13 years, the league almost triples in size. What do you think these new teams are doing? Where are these new teams getting all these players from? Is this the end of the season already? Whoa, that was quick. That was really quick. So, basically, people say, oh, the 80s were high scoring and bad equipment. Gretzky was good. Oh, if Gretzky was playing now, he'd only get 20 points. Gretzky and Lemieux, all those guys, they were superstars. They played now, they'd still be superstars. If they played in the original 6 era, they'd be superstars. But if you take these superstars and you put them in a league where the amount of teams has almost tripled or almost quadrupled in like 13 years, you're gonna have teams coming in that take players from, let's say, the DEL or the SHL or the Liga. You're gonna have all these teams with players that aren't ready to play at the NHL level, which means you're gonna have teams that suck. It's like today. What if the NHL went from 30 teams to 90 teams over the span of 10 years? Where do you think the rest of these 60 teams would get all of their players from? They'd get them from the AHL, they'd get them from Europe, and these players wouldn't be good enough to compete with the likes of Sidney Crosby, or Ovechkin, or Jamie Benn. And because of that, the guys like Crosby and Ovechkin, they're gonna get way more points, because there's way more competition that sucks. Basically, that's my 2 cents. The league, the expansion, really helped the development of good players. So, what we're looking at here is a list. Oh my goodness, it's actually so equal. What happened here? So, what I did is we ran a full simulation of 6 original 6 teams with the rosters that Chris created on Reddit, and 6 normal Swiss teams. So this is what we got. This is what the scoring race looks like. With the lines that Chris proclaimed on his Reddit post, Evgeny Malkin gets 66 points in 50 games. Quickly, if I do the math, 66 divided by 50 times 82, that's a 108-point season. So Malkin gets 108 points if it's an 82-game season. Of course, here we're just going to go with 50 games. Malkin, Tavares, Stamkos, McDavid. Wow, Toronto with the top 3 of 4. Nice. 64 for Tavares, 63 for Stamkos, 61 for McDavid. Tavares looked like he was the goal scorer on that team. In terms of goals, Tavares is number 1. Tarasenko playing on that third line with Chicago, with Draisaitl and O'Reilly. He gets 2nd with 29. He was probably on the power play or something. That might have contributed. Yeah, he got 6 power play goals. Malkin is over there at 28. Let's just see. Tavares, okay. 30 goals divided by 50 games times 82. Yeah, no, if Tavares was playing an 82-game season, he would have won the Maurice Richard with 49 goals. So, yeah, it's an interesting concept to put all these players the way they did, but this is just regular season. We still got the playoffs to go through, and Giroux, McDavid, Stamkos all up there with mid-40s in assists. But Malkin takes the cake. He gets the Art Ross, 104 points, 66 points in 50 games, and that's what the league looks like. This is how it ranks if you use Chris's rosters. So, now we gotta look at the season stats. And I don't know how points work out in the, the Swiss League. But, as you see, we got 6 teams, half of them are all up here. It looks like it's gonna be a 1-8, 2-7, 3-6 kind of bracket. So what we're going to have is most likely New York versus Lugano, Chicago versus the Lions, Detroit, Toronto, Boston, Montreal. So this kind of does work out because it makes it so that the teams that finish the highest, which are New York and Chicago, they're going to get easy passes to the second round. They're going to play off against the Lions and Lugano. So, really, New York and Chicago are getting easy passes to the second round, while Detroit, Boston, Montreal, Toronto all have to fight it out within each other to see who's going to advance to the second round then. So, it's going to be interesting. This is definitely not how the original 6 playoffs worked out, but this is the best you can do in the game because, you can't have 6 teams in a season playing this video game. So what we're going to do is we're going to simulate. We're going to simulate the playoffs. And I don't know how the playoffs work here for the Swiss leagues. Let's stop the simulation. So, yeah, okay, it's a best of 7. That's good. Toronto versus Detroit, this is a good rivalry. And it looks like Toronto has taken out Detroit in 6 games, which means they're playing off against the New York Rangers. So we'll take a look at the playoff tree after this, because this is kind of what we're looking at right here. Oh, no, not player stats. This would be interesting. Tavares gets 9 points in 6 games. Okay, so what we have, of course, Chicago and New York beat the Lions and the Lugano. So, reseeding everything, Montreal beat Boston 4-3. So, okay, so that lineup, Sidney Crosby carries himself through the likes of Getzlaf and Thornton. They get through Weber. Toronto beats Detroit 4-2. So, as I was saying, Toronto, McDavid, Stamkos, and Tavares, that crew, they defeated out the Red Wings. Lucic, Sagan, Carlson, Ekman Larson, Braden Holtby, they didn't have what it took to defeat the Maple Leafs. So now we have Chicago versus Montreal and New York versus Toronto. We'll sim quickly through this because, it's a really interesting kind of concept, and I applaud Chris so much for the dedication and the time that he used up to make these rosters. And it looks like Toronto's got a good chance. Yep, they did it. They did it. Toronto took out New York in 6 games as well. So what we have here is a final series of Toronto. Captain is Jonathan Toews. McDavid and Bergeron are the A's, going up against Montreal, who is captained by Sidney Crosby. Alternate captains are Ryan McDonough and Anze Kopitar. So this is interesting. This is really interesting. I want to see how the Montreal series played out. Oh my goodness, Montreal defeated Chicago 4-1. So the likes of that first line of Giroux, Ovechkin, and Kane couldn't get it done. Wow, that's interesting. But, it's kind of like this whole thing. It's like you don't know what to expect. So, you know what? We'll simulate all of this like Superman style. We'll simulate the first 3 games. And okay. Maybe I should switch my perspective because Toronto just seems to have been kicking it the whole way through. But honestly, I didn't really expect a difference. Like, looking at these lines right here, Toronto just looks like the team to beat. Like, their defensive core isn't really that good, but they have Carey Price in net. Of course, I didn't show you guys the goalies in this video, but you can go check out Chris's post on Reddit, and that will show you the full lineup of everything. And keep in mind that the lineup is the same, but I kept all the players' overalls from NHL 17. So, of course, this isn't completely accurate, but it does have some truth in it, I guess. because a lineup of McDavid, Stamkos, Tavares, Taves, I can see that going a long way, especially with Carey Price in net. Their defensive core is what suffers because their top pairing is Bouwmeester and Savard. But other than that, I think this is a solid team, and they do kind of had what it took the whole time to beat all the other teams. So Toronto, Taves and Tavares, 3 goals in total, and it looks like this is what's going to go down, man. Like, Toronto, they're shutting it down right here. Johnny Gaudreau gets one on Fleury. Alright, here's a power play for Montreal, but the defense and the goaltending gets it done. Here's another one from Tavares. This is gonna be a 4-game sweep in the finals for the Toronto Maple Leafs, and that's all she wrote. The Toronto Maple Leafs have just proved themselves as the best team under original 6 circumstances in today's NHL. So, that was really interesting. The playoff champions are the Toronto Maple Leafs. At first, it was interesting because they made it. They were the last seeded team. But in the playoffs, this team really did show up. And if we take a look at all the stats, Toronto has 100 offense, 94 and 94 in the defensive and goaltending side of things. So if we take a look at an average of that, their average was 96. And all the other teams, I believe, were also at 96. But one of them was actually at 97. I'm not too sure which one that was. It's interesting. Like, looking at all these other teams, offense doesn't seem to be at 100 for any of the other teams except for Chicago. Chicago was a 100, 95, 92. Toronto was a 100, 94, 94. So really, Chicago was edged out by Toronto by just like 1 point. And same thing for the Bruins. Honestly, like, New York might have been the best team in the season, but Toronto has proved themselves to be a playoff team in this fictional circumstance that was created on Reddit. So yeah, the first comment on this Reddit post says, run this through an NHL 17 simulation, and this is what we just did. Under original 6 circumstances, where the highest original 6 team picks in the drafts, the Toronto Maple Leafs are the best. The Toronto Maple Leafs with a team of Stamkos, McDavid, Tavares, Bouwmeester, Savard, and Carey Price, and a second unit of Bergeron, Taves, Barkov, Klefbom, and Muzzin. These guys have won the championship, and they are the best team. Wow, what a great, interesting video. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Sure, and gaming. The Toronto Maple Leafs have won the original 6 era circumstance, and bye.